Rocking the BG.
And welcome, everyone, to Sports on Tap's Ohio High School football coverage, presented by RRT Productions. I'm your host, Rob Trump. We have Josh Eviedick. Sean Duffy is out on location, and we're live.
I believe he's flying to Arkansas.
I believe so.
Is he going to go visit Walmart out there? He's going to go to Bentonville?
I don't know what he's going to see.
Maybe he can go visit Burt Bielema and tell him how to win a game.
Oh,
yeah, against the MAC especially.
Yowzers.
But I want to welcome everyone in on today's show. We're going to recap Week 7, look ahead to Week 8. We'll give our conference MVPs presented by Z's Cream and Bean. We'll also go over our spotlight games. We'll go over Massillon Tigers as they defeated Youngstown Ursuline in a really good game that me and Josh were able to bring in. And
Josh and I.
Josh and I. Yeah, I keep saying it, don't I?
Yeah.
That's all right.
It's 2 weeks in a row. That's all right. You're consistent.
I've
That's
never
good.
said I was an English major in college.
Well,
so that's why you're here.
Well, it's good that English is your second language. That's all I'll say.
Yeah. And
suits out well for your speaking abilities here,
that's
Robert.
Right. That's right. But we'll also cover the Buckeye Bucks as they continue their undefeated season, and we'll go over how they looked this last week, which, I think when you look at Week 7, I think some of the stronger teams got stronger, and some of the teams that were hanging around still are kind of hanging around, but they might be taking a little bit of a back seat this week in each conference, and I'm interested to see what you guys thought in your respected conferences of how Week 7 went.
Week 7 went about the way I expected it to. We had one really, really good game, and it turned out to be a really, really good game. And the rest of the games we're about what I expected. Brecksville Broadview Heights, we'll get into the game a little bit later, but they're going with their backup quarterback now, and you certainly saw the effects of that. No offense, to said backup, which we'll get into it later, of course,
yeah.
But the offense just doesn't run the same without the stud quarterback Luke Sternad, and we did see that in their game. But in the other two games, we had two superior opponents against two decidedly inferior opponents, and that's exactly what it was treated. They were treated as such.
Yeah. Josh, how about the Greater Cleveland Conference?
Greater Cleveland Conference, it's getting tighter and tighter, and you would think some of the teams that you would think would run away with it, kind of aren't yet. Teams like Menor and Solon and Euclid, those guys are, towards the top. But then you got a team like Brunswick who started off very slow but now have won 3 in a row. So
time for first, baby.
Let's just get into it right now. I'm going to start off with Menor with a 42-20 victory over the Medina Battling Bees. That's Medina's third straight loss. So things are kind of going south for them. Alex Matthews out for Menor with a game. MVP candidate for sure. 28 rushing attempts, 252 yards, and 5 touchdowns.
Oh, jeez.
Medina, though, had a couple of good performances. One from Jimmy Daw, running back, 29 carries, 115 yards, and a touchdown. And then Dylan Foltz had 6 rushes for 123 yards, a touchdown. And he also added 3 receptions for 45 yards and a touchdown. But Menor was just too strong for Medina. They just really put the ball on the ground and said, Medina, here you go, stop us. And Medina just could not. That's actually the most individual rushing yards by a Menor running back since 2010. So Alex Matthews with a big performance in that one. Menor improves to 5-2, 3-1 overall in the conference. Medina drops to 3-4 and 1-3 in the conference. So again, they're kind of going on a downward trend as we speak. Solon with a very big victory, 38-14 over Strongsville. Strongsville again, kind of not playing as well as we thought they would, as they were earlier in the season. Solon improves to 5-2, 3-1 in the conference. Strongsville drops to 4-3, 2-2 in the conference. And Solon was led by quarterback Johnny Mooney, who was 19 of 29. 307 yards passing and 5 touchdowns. Solon got off to an early 13-0 lead here in the first quarter and just did not look back. But our boy from Strongsville, Zach,
Con!
workhorse-like, and he's an MVP candidate. He had 39 rushing attempts for 289 yards and 2 touchdowns. So he had a good performance, but again, just not enough as the Solon Comets defeated the Mustangs of Strongsville. The Brunswick Blue Devils, with their 3rd straight conference win, improving their record overall to 3-4, 3-1 in the conference. And Ed said tied for first place in the GCC, defeating Shaker Heights 31-14. Shaker is now 3-4 overall, 0-4 in the GCC. Brunswick was led by Jacob Martin, 24 rushing attempts, 164 yards, and a touchdown. He did have 1 reception for 68 yards and a touchdown. So that Brunswick flex bone, they're really starting to get used to that, and it's starting to really kick in for them. Again, fullback Alec Gillespie, 14 rushes, 108 yards, and a touchdown. Shaker Heights had 98 yards by their running back. The rest of the team, though, on offense only managed 146 yards of total offense. So you got to give credit to the Brunswick Blue Devils defense on holding Shaker Heights to a very small amount of offense. And you got to give them credit again. Started off 0-4 and has since won 3 in a row. Things are going good for the Blue Devils as they head into Week 8. My spotlight game was kind of the closest game out of the GCC. Euclid beat Elyria 23-10. Euclid was led by running back Chris Collins, who had 153 yards rushing and a touchdown, 1 TD run of 88 yards in that. Javon Avery, also added a 4-yard TD run there. And for Euclid, last week's MVP for myself, Keon Williams, also had a 40-yard touchdown reception. Elyria was led by Chris Atkinson, 22 rushes, 119 yards for a touchdown. And this was Euclid's 3rd straight conference win to kind of also enter the forte, that logjam on top of the GCC. So I guess you can say no surprises. I mean, the teams that were supposed to win did, but there was still, everything is so tight now. If you look at the GCC, you got 4 teams overall with a 5-2 record, but you have 4 teams that are tied for first place at a 3-1 conference record. Strongsville and Elyria are 4-3 overall. Strongsville's 2-2 in the conference. Illyria's 1-3 in the conference. Medina and Shaker are both 3-4. Like I said, Medina's 1-3 in the conference, and then Shaker rounds out the bottom at 0-4 in the conference. But this is a tightly bunched group. Every game matters. We talked about it last week. Every game matters. And again, you're looking at it. Every game matters, and it doesn't matter how you started off. You know, this is a conference where if you're able to get wins, you get points. And you can see that's a prime example of what Brunswick's doing right now.
Well, and one thing I didn't mention is we'll talk about team rankings a little later in the show, too, because you look at some of these team rankings when it's starting to matter now a little bit more is Brunswick. You know, they're the top 16 teams make it, and they're just on the outside, and they're a 3-4 team right now.
Yeah, according to Joe Itell, again, these are unofficial rankings. These are just projections, but Joe Itell is one of the most trusted sources in high school football. He has Brunswick ranked 18th right now, which is a little surprising, but, you know, those first 4 losses, you know, are kind of hurting them right now, but if they can muster up, 2, possibly even 3 more wins at the end of the season, and they're going to be well on their way.
Yeah, you know, there's a lot of good teams. Menor and Medina were actually really close going into the fourth quarter, and then Menor finally got, I think, some consistency on offense and started putting up some points and ran away with it a little bit. But really in the GCC, overall, you just don't know who's going to win on a regular basis. I mean, a lot of close games. You know, Strongsville, I thought, started off really strong. Mm-hmm. They came back down a little bit, but, you know, Shaker Heights started off quick. I think Euclid is a pretty impressive team. I mean, they've been playing solid along with Solon. I mean, just up and down, it's strong. But some of those teams are really starting to step up and win games.
Yeah, Euclid with first year coach Jeff Rotsky out there. You know, he's led 2 other programs to pretty good success on Maple Heights and Cleveland Heights up until this point. And, you know, when Euclid had the opportunity to get him, it was just a perfect fit for him.
Yeah.
You know, that's exactly the type of team that Coach Roski likes to take over, and you can see the immediate benefits right now. I mean, they've defeated Mentor. I mean, that was huge. They are responsible for Mentor's loss, and that's just you see a team like that. And Mentor beat them. Didn't
Actually, yeah,
no,
Mentor beat Euclid, but Solon.
Okay, yeah, that's my bad. They beat Solon. Solon beat Mentor. Mentor beat Euclid.
Yeah.
So those three teams right now, I think those three East Side teams are probably the best three in the conference right now in my mind. Brunswick's hanging out there at 3-1. They obviously had a really rough game against Solon in their conference opener, but there's always you had the two other East Side schools, Euclid and Mentor, in week 8 and week 9, and then all bets are off against Stronsville. And generally, in the last 2 years, the winner of the Brunswick-Stronsville game has qualified for the playoffs, and it's been Brunswick.
Yeah,
I could see that game. Provided that Brunswick takes care of business against Euclid, then you're probably going to have a little bit of a rougher time against Mentor. But if they can get to 5-4 or even 4-5 and beat Stronsville in week 10, then I think Brunswick has a chance to maybe sneak into that 15-16 spot.
And I think it's funny because every year I feel like the Brunswick-Stronsville game has some kind of playoff implications. Last year, I think they had to beat each other, and the winner was going to go to the playoffs, and the loser was going to basically go home. So, it's going to be interesting to see how that conference shakes out, but a lot of great football still to play.
Absolutely. I mean, and being a part of that, haven't seen some of the games just up close and personal. I mean, it's great competition in this conference. You're not going to see a better. This is one of the better public school conferences in the area, and definitely in the area, and if not the state of Ohio. Like I said, you have all Division I schools in this conference, so there's not going to be any drop off as far as computer points are concerned. You beat one of these teams, you're going to get rewarded in some form or fashion.
Yeah, I agree with you 100% on that. Now we'll go to the Southwestern Conference, and we'll start off as North Ridgeville traveled to Avon in what was going to be a really good game because both teams with one loss. And it was Avon quarterback Jake Sopko to running back Garrett Choate to score early on, and they led 7-0 in that game. Then Avon came right back. It was Xavier Holmes with a block punt. The Eagles ran it in for a touchdown. It made it 14-0, and pretty much Avon ran away with it. The Rangers got 118 yards rushing from quarterback Colin Sullinger, but it was another frustrating night for the star running back, Demario McCall. He's going to Ohio State as he was held to -1 yard on his first 7 carries. And when he finally broke free from a 23-yard run in the second quarter, he fell to the ground clutching again his right hamstring. He left the game and did not return. But the bright spot for North Ridgeville, and it's funny I say bright spot because Cam Bright for North Ridgeville ran it in for the Rangers to give them 14, but it was Avon 48, North Ridgeville 14. North Ridgeville falls to 5-2, and it was Avon at 6-1. Avon senior Will Heilman led the Eagles with 5 catches for 111 yards. It was Garrett Choate. He had 192 yards of total offense in the first half alone, and rushing for 125 yards and catching a screen pass from Sopko and going around an entire defense for a 62-yard touchdown, and that was his second of the night. And he's also a conference MVP candidate there is Garrett Choate, the running back for Avon. He's had a huge game. Again, Avon wins 48-14, and I was a little surprised with that score. I thought North Ridgeville has stayed close. They beat Olmsted Falls, which I thought was a huge win, coming off some big wins. And in this game, Avon just had their number, and they've had it for the past few years now.
And North Ridgeville in this game really needed all hands on deck. And when Demario McCall went down, that's their stud. And Avon obviously schemed to stop him, and they did a really good job of it. But still, you need him out on the field, if nothing else, just to provide maybe some sort of a decoy so some of your other playmakers can make something happen. But Avon, like you said, Avon's kind of had North Ridgeville's number over the last couple of years, and it was tough sledding for North Ridgeville, for this contest. It's not a bad reflection on them at all. I mean, it's not they're not the first team that Avon's done this to,
right?
But these are the type of games that North Ridgeville needs to start winning if they want to be taken seriously in this conference, which is pretty stacked from top to bottom.
I would agree with you on that. we'll see what happens with North Ridgeville. They'll look to bounce back next week. But now Avon Lake traveled to Berea Mid-Park, and, this was a rough one as Berea Mid-Park opened the game with an 81-yard kick return from Matt Hosler, leading to Joey Bocce's first of 2 rushing touchdowns on the day. Quarterback Nick Gassman completed 18 of 28 passes for 272 yards and 4 touchdowns, including 2 to senior Brett Swinnerton. Senior John Turk returned an interception for 75 yards for a touchdown for the Titans. And Berea Mid-Park's defense held Avon Lake's offense to 127 yards of total offense. It was Berea Mid-Park winning 49-0 over Avon Lake. Avon Lake falls to 3-4. It's Berea Mid-Park as they improve to 5-2 on the year. So Berea Mid-Park with a great win there. Now North Olmsted traveling to Amherst, and this was a real tough game for North Olmsted as the Eagles quarterback Christian Ammons completed 16 of 22 passes for 245 yards and 3 touchdowns, and his favorite target was Ryan Coleman, who caught 7 passes for 127 yards, including a 38-yard touchdown reception for North Olmsted. And for Amherst, it was quarterback Nick DeJesus completing 14 of 24 passes for 145 yards and a touchdown. He also rushed for 40 yards and a score, but in the end, North Olmsted wins 27-16 over Amherst. North Olmsted improves to 4-3, and Amherst drops to 0-7 on the year. Lakewood and Westlake, the battle of the winless right now, as both teams did not have a win on the season. Lakewood, though, started off with a tip pass that led to a Lakewood touchdown, and the Rangers led Westlake 10-7 after 1 quarter. Then Westlake returns with Jaquan Hardy, the running back for Westlake, and he's had such a great year on a 5-yard touchdown run. Withers' kick was blocked, and Westlake led 13-10. Then Jaquan Hardy added his 3rd touchdown on a 31-yard run to give Westlake a 21-10 lead. In the last play of the half, Westlake did connect on a Belotis to Rose on a 26-yard touchdown right before halftime expired. 28-10 was the halftime score. At half, Westlake led the game. Then Lakewood came out at half, and a 10-yard pass from quarterback Jack Wheatrey to Quentin Palmer. It made it 28-17, but Westlake in the end was too much, and they get their first win of the season. They win 35-17. Lakewood drops to 0-7. Westlake at 1-6, and it was Westlake's first year coach Jason Hall's first victory at the school, and Westlake outscored Lakewood 21-0 in the second quarter. Running back Jaquan Hardy scored 2 of his 3 touchdowns in the first quarter. Terrence Rose caught a touchdown pass and returned a kickoff for a touchdown for Westlake. So an impressive win for Westlake as they finally get their first win of the season. Now we'll go to the spotlight game, and this I thought was going to be a little bit closer, and it was close most of the game. It was Olmsted Falls traveling to Midview, and Midview just continually their offense can't be stopped. But Olmsted Falls junior running back and fullback Spencer Linville was out with a shoulder injury.
Oh.
And Midview quarterback Dustin Crum was dressed and did play 1 play in the game, and he didn't play any more after that. But Midview first punt by Olmsted Falls was returned by Dimitri Redwood, 70 yards for a touchdown. It went 7-0 Midview, and actually Redwood wasn't supposed to return punts. It was Damian Mahone supposed to return punts. They have a competition to see who can return. So Mahone says, "Go ahead, Redwood. Let's see what you can do." And he returned it 70 yards to lead Midview 7-0 to the start.
Way to call your teammate there, huh?
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Talk about a competition between those two. Olmsted Falls then connected on a 32-yard field goal to cut the lead to 7-3. But then Midview responded with a Logan Bolin ran it in from 1 yard out. It was 14-3 Midview, and that was the score going into half, 14-3. So then Olmsted Falls, after half, responded with a 12-yard pass to cut into Midview's lead. It was then 14-10. And the score actually stayed 14-10 going into the fourth quarter. Then on 3rd and 20, Midview converted. Then from 9 yards out, it was Logan Bolin with a rushing touchdown to give Midview a 21-10 lead, and they never looked back, scoring 2 more times as Bolin to Dimitri Redwood for a 51-yard touchdown, and Bolin ran it in from 3 yards out. Midview runs away in the fourth and stays undefeated with a 35-10 win over Olmsted Falls. Olmsted Falls now 5-1, and Midview is still undefeated. Or actually, no, 6-. Or they might be 5-2 now.
5-2.
Yeah, 5-2, and Midview's 7-0. So, an impressive win by Midview again.
I'll tell you what, with Logan Bolin into the game now, it's almost as if they have another added dimension. He scored three rushing touchdowns in addition to a 51-yard passing touchdown. We know Dustin Crum is more of a gunslinger,
a pocket passer. Well, he can run, but he's more of a pocket passer.
Absolutely. But with Boylan though back there, he's clearly a dual threat. I mean, he's a guy you want on the outside catching passes from Crum, but for a team like Midview, to be able to adjust halfway through the year, say, hey, we're going to take our best athlete that's not Dustin Crum, throw him in as a quarterback, and see what he can do. We're starting to see that there's another part of the offense that Midview can strike on, and Olmsted Falls, unfortunately, was the recipient of said offense. Yeah,
and one thing, the Olmsted Falls was without Spencer Linville, but they also had Noah Caraballo, who stepped in last week and had 225 yards, and on this night he had 70 yards on 18 rushes. So give credit to Midview's defense on that to contain Noah Caraballo and that Olmsted Falls offense. Now, Dimitri Redwood did have 9 receptions, 152 yards. Logan Bolin, again, completed 17 of 28 passes for 220 yards and led the Middies' rushing attack with another 140 yards and 3 touchdowns. And now Bolin has caught a pass. He actually did catch a pass, and I believe that's when Dustin Crum came into the game. He has now caught a pass in 32 straight games, tying him for 9th all-time in Ohio with Sugar Creek Garraway's Josh Worker and Lorraine Catholic's Matt Skolnicki. And just an impressive performance. Like you said, Logan Bolin, I feel like, does add a new dimension there. And I think Redwood, we're seeing other players also step up. Damian Mahone and Dimitri Redwood are on the outside as receivers. They're making more catches. But I think when Bolin can run, that defense doesn't know if he's going to run or step back and pass. And then when you have threats like Dimitri Redwood and Damian Mahone on the ends, that's going to really pose problems, I think, for defenses out there.
Sure is. And speaking of defense, I mean, Midview defensively, I mean, they took advantage of an Olmsted Falls team that was missing their horse. But nonetheless, they've been proving it all year. They've held some very potent offenses to not a lot of points. I mean, the Berea Mid Park, they held them to 14. I mean, that was the biggest game of the year up until that point. They gave up some points in the shootout to Avon, but when you're scoring 55 points, 35 points, you'll accept that.
Yeah.
And Avon's got with Garrett Choate back there, they're obviously a very formidable offensive opponent. Going forward, we'll talk about what's going to happen here in the coming weeks. But Midview's got a winless team ahead of them in Lakewood, and I'm looking for Midview to probably play Bolin again.
Yeah.
There's no reason to play Crum in that game, I don't think. At this point, you're want to make sure you're completely healthy for the playoff run, because that specific region is going to be quite brutal once you actually get into it.
And just going over the standings real quick, Midview 7-0, Avon 6-1, and then Olmsted Falls, North Ridgeville, and Berea Mid Park are 5-2 overall. 4-2 in conference are all 3 of them. And then you have North Olmsted at 4-3, Avon Lake dropped to 3-4, Westlake now 1-6, and then Amherst and Lakewood are 0-7. And Midview, one thing with them in the rankings, they actually moved up to number 1 now in that region, in Region 4, and Avon's in 3rd, Olmsted Falls at 9, and you have Northern Ridgeville drop down to 6 after being 3rd. So we'll go over all that later, but there's the standings for the Southwestern Conference, and should be interesting looking forward. We'll preview Week 8 coming up a little later in the show, but right now let's go to the Suburban League, and Ed's going to do you're going to be a dual threat, I believe, here tonight, covering the American and the national side of things.
I'm going to help my
Suburban League.
I'm going to help my cohort out, my Suburban League colleague, Sean Duffy. He's out on assignment today, so we're going to start with his the American division of the Suburban League. First game, we're to go to Aurora, where this was quite an offensive showing for Aurora, not so much for the Revere Minutemen. Aurora takes this game 42-7. It started out as a good game early in the first quarter. It was a 7-7 game. Unfortunately, for the Minutemen, offensively they cannot sustain the momentum. Aurora scores 35 unanswered points. Chris Vanzo from Aurora had 4 rushing touchdowns in this game, and
wow.
that just that pretty much put it away for the Greenmen. With the win, Aurora improves to 6-1 overall and 3-1 in the conference. Revere is 2-5 overall, winless in the conference at 0-4.
Oh man!
Moving on to Talmadge, the Blue Devils played host to the Magics of Barberton, and once again, not the closest of games. Barberton, a little stung from their past performances. They certainly took their energies and their frustrations out on the Blue Devils. 56-7 was in this game, was the total score here. Barberton quarterback Zane Race had 3 passing touchdowns. Our old buddy Brendan McCall, running back for the Magics, had 3 rushing touchdowns. Barberton's defense was stout, holding Talmadge to only 1 touchdown, which was scored late in the fourth quarter.
Wow!
So Barberton able to trigger the running clock, get that going, and Talmadge was, Talmadge got their touchdown, good for them. But Barberton clearly was the class of this game. With the win, Barberton improves to 5-2 overall, 1-2 in the conference. Talmadge drops to 1-6 overall, 1-2 in the conference. We will now travel to Kent Roosevelt. This is a non-conference game. They were able to host the Garfield Heights, the Bulldogs of Garfield Heights, and it was a pretty good game for Roosevelt. 28-7 was the final score there. So Kent Roosevelt able to get some offense going there. Garfield Heights, they're playing an independent schedule, so you're going to see games like this from time to time where it doesn't particularly fit in. But Garfield Heights is struggling a little bit this year. A couple years ago they were playoff contenders. This year it's just not working out too well for them. And Kent Roosevelt was able to jump on them early and take control of the game. They improved to 3-4 overall, and it was a non-conference game, so they remain 1-2 in the conference. The spotlight game. This was a big one here too. The Medina Highland Hornets travel to Copley to take on the Indians. Lots of points on the board here.
I was really intrigued by this game because I felt if Highland gets a win here, this could really make the conference even more interesting.
Absolutely, and Highland was coming off their big win over Aurora last week too. So I mean, they had some momentum going into this game. All the signs were there for a very, very competitive environment, and Copley, they jumped on the Hornets quite early here, and they were able to actually Highland, my fault. Highland took a 7-0 lead. Sam Jenkins scores from 2 yards out early in the second quarter, takes a 7-0 lead. Copley responds on his next possession when Austin Brunner took off for a long run and was dragged down at the Highland 1-yard line. That's okay because junior running back Weston Bridges finishes it off with a 1-yard touchdown run to tie the game at 7. Bridges was back at it again. Takes a 20-yard run into the end zone to give Copley a 14-7 lead just before the half. And after that, it was all Copley from there. As overall, Copley ended up winning 41-10.
Yeah,
this was
that's surprising.
It was, absolutely. I mean, it seemed like Copley was able to. I mean, they rode the legs of Weston Bridges. He had 22 carries for 208 yards and 5 touchdowns. That included an 88-yard touchdown run in the fourth quarter. And Weston Bridges actually accounted for 5 of Copley's 6 touchdowns. And when a player like Weston Bridges gets on a roll, it's tough. It's tough for anyone to stop him. And Highland, unfortunately, just didn't have an answer for Weston Bridges. Copley's defense was up to the task as well. They held Highland's offense to 10 points, shut them out in the second half. And that was just they had 2 interceptions and a fumble recovery.
Wow.
Which that's obviously going to stymie any type of offense. And the way that Copley was rolling on the offensive end, those are mistakes that Highland could ill afford to have. Austin Brenner was 9-20 passing for 123 yards to 1 touchdown. On the Highland side, Tyler Zielinski had 18 of 28 passing for 228 yards. With the win, Copley takes firm control of their destiny in the American Division. They are 7-0 overall, 4-0 in the conference. Highland drops to 4-3 overall, 2-1 in the conference. And like you said, Rob, we saw this game. We saw it as a spotlight game, and judging off of Highland's stellar performance last week, we really thought this one was going to be a little bit closer.
Yeah, you know what was funny? Coming back from Massillon, we actually passed Copley Stadium with all the lights on and just realized that they were playing Highland. So we wanted to see what the final score was. And at first we thought Highland won the game, and I'm like, this could change the conference. And then we realized they were saying Copley ended up beating Highland. And I was surprised by the score, but I think this tells me that, Copley is just a team that is just so strong. They have so many weapons. You got to stop their quarterback. You got to stop their running game. They're not afraid to air it out a little bit, but it seems like they're just so dominant up front that, Copley's a tough team to stop overall. And their defense, they stopped a very good Highland team, held them to 10 points. That's just overall impressive, and congratulations to Copley. They really have, stood out in this conference this year.
Absolutely, and they're shaping up for a pretty solid ending to their season. We'll get into the rest of the schedules for Week 8, but I kind of have a feeling what the spotlight game of the week is going to be for Week 8 in the Suburban League American Division. So we are going to shift our focus over to the National Division, the division that I specifically cover. And we're going to start at Brecksville Broadview Heights. They got back to their winning ways, defeated visiting North Worldton 7-0 in the game for the Golden Shoe, a nice rivalry between the two teams out there. Backup quarterback Dan Sharilla stepped in for Luke Sternad and hit wide receiver Tyler Tupa for a 17-yard touchdown pass in the first quarter. That was enough for the victory, as the Bees recorded their 4th shutout out of 7 games this season, while North Worldton on the other side has been shut out for the 2nd consecutive game. With the win, Brecksville improves to 6-1 overall, 3-1 in the conference. They're going to travel to Wadsworth, while North Worldton drops to 2-5 overall, 1-3 in the conference. They're going to host the Macedonia Nordonia Knights. Speaking of said Knights, in Macedonia, Anthony Perrine continues his assault on the end zone, recording another 4 touchdowns and a 41-0 Nordonia rout of the Cuyahoga Falls Black Tigers. Perrine rushed for 169 yards in this game, and his touchdowns covered 7, 11, 36, and 2 yards. The Knights special teams also got in the act as Tyler Soltis returned the second half kickoff 93 yards for the touchdown. The Black Tigers were shut out for the 3rd time this season. Nordonia with the win improves to 4-3 overall, 2-2 in the conference. They will travel to North Worldton, while winless Cuyahoga Falls will host Stowe Monroe Falls. I'm sorry, Black Tigers. The Wadsworth Grizzlies, they are continuing their winning ways. They won their 3rd consecutive game, win a 34-13 victory over winless Twinsburg. 2 Grizzly running backs eclipsed 100 yards, as Dane Weinerman had 164 yards on 28 carries, while Alex Jones had 116 yards with 3 touchdowns. Twinsburg did prove to be a game competitor, cutting the Wadsworth lead to 21-13 early in the 4th quarter, but the Wadsworth defense held and gave Jones the opportunity to put in 2 touchdowns in the 4th to help seal the game. Tigers quarterback Jalen Tucker did have 18 carries for 108 yards and did throw for a touchdown. Wadsworth improves to 3-4 overall, 3-1 in the conference. They're going to host Brecksville, while the winless Twinsburg Tigers host Hudson. Once again, I feel bad for the Tigers.
Yeah, that's going to be a tough one. But how about Wadsworth, though?
How about Wadsworth?
Wadsworth start get a few wins together. I think that's going to be a great game next week.
Yeah, it's a possible spotlight game of the week. We'll see.
Yeah,
we'll see what happens. They're kind of taking the same route that Brunswick's been taking lately.
Yeah.
Drop the first 4, win 3 in the conference. Get
no
yourselves,
big deal.
Yeah, whatever. Monkey see, monkey do. So let's go to our spotlight game of the week. The National Division spotlight game of the week was a battle of the top 2 teams in the league as the Hudson Explorers traveled to neighboring Stowe Monroe Falls. Both teams were the only league teams that were in qualifying positions in their respective playoff regions, and plenty of points around the line. While both teams are known for their offensive prowess, the defense was up to the task in this contest for both teams. Jason Gobble started the scoring with a 12-yard scoring run in the first quarter. This ended up being his only score of the night, a testament to how the Explorers were able to limit Gobble's production. Sophomore kicker Grant Gagne, whose uncle happens to be ex-NFL kicker Jeff Wilkins from Youngstown State, connected on a 43-yard field goal to bring Hudson back to within 7-3 in the second quarter. Stowe quarterback Kyle Van Treese answered with a 1-yard touchdown run to extend the Bulldog lead to 14-3. Stowe went up 17-3 in the fourth quarter with a field goal before the Explorers finally got into the end zone with a 13-yard touchdown pass from Jackson Parker to Kevin Callahan. This does close the scoring out at 17-10. Stowe gets the big win over the Hudson Explorers. It snaps a 7-year winless streak against the Explorers.
Wow!
And this was lots of points on the board here, and Stowe was able to get them. Jason Gobble, we're used to stellar performances from him. He's been MVP multiple times. He was limited to 77 yards on 24 carries.
Wow.
But he was picked up by Kyle Van Treese's 13 of 19 passing for 190 yards. Stowe's defense was more than up to the task. They held Hudson to under 300 total offensive yards. With the win, Stowe remains undefeated, and they will travel to Cuyahoga Falls, while Hudson is 5-2 overall, 3-1 in the conference. They travel to Twinsburg. Guys, this was these are two teams that you expect to have, you expected this to be more of a blowout. How surprised are you guys that this was a lower scoring game than we thought?
I thought it would be a high-scoring game, and I thought it would be close. I thought this was one that maybe Stowe could slip on a little bit because Hudson's a very tough team, and they've gotten on a little bit of a roll later here in the season, and they had one loss, and that was early on against Strongsville, but they've rattled off 4 or 5 wins in a row now, and I thought this would be one that they could maybe pull off against Stowe, but again, Stowe this year has been really a strong team, kind of like Copley, that has really stood out in the conference, and they continue with this win. So a very impressive win, and I wasn't really surprised. I actually was surprised that it wasn't a higher scoring game, but both teams played very well, I thought.
Well, when you mentioned that nugget about, this breaks a 7-game losing streak, between these two teams, that's a big mental hurdle for Stowe to overcome. And then for something like that, you can kind of maybe see a game like this, a low-scoring, grinded-out game with really two really good teams that are playing at a high level of football right now. And Stowe is just one of those teams where it could be their year. They could be one of the teams that make a run, and it's games like this where maybe they don't have everything clicking on all cylinders, but they're still able to find a way. That's a sign of a very good team that has really good aspirations of doing something great.
Yeah, and you guys are absolutely right. I mean, this is a playoff-level opponent that they played, and once they get into the playoffs, because they will get into the playoffs, they're in Division I, Region 1, and there are some heavy hitters in that specific region.
Yeah, they are currently ranked 3rd in Joe Itel's rankings.
Yeah, absolutely, and they're up there with St. Ed's, Westerville Central, Mentor, Euclid. I mean, this is such a loaded division. I mean, right now, if the season ended today, they would host Findlay, former home of Ben Roethlisberger.
Wow.
Who cares?
Yeah, I'm just going. I'm just providing context for my stats.
I got it.
For all the listeners that do care.
Exactly. All three of you, I appreciate that. So we look at we'll do a quick look at the standings here in the division. I mean, Stowe Monroe Falls 7-0, 4-0 in the conference. Brecksville Broadview Heights is second, 6-1, 3-1 in the conference. Unfortunately, Brecksville Broadview Heights needs to pick up a quality win here because their record is quite gaudy, but their victories are not. And right now they're on the outside looking in Region 3. They're ranked number 11th actually. Now Hudson's 5-2 overall. Their conference they are 3-1. They are currently 7th in Region 3. Wadsworth 3-4, 3-1 3-1 in the conference. Wadsworth is on a 3-game winning streak, and they've quickly skyrocketed into the conversation here for the National Division title here. Nordonia 4-3 overall, 2-2 in the conference. North Royalton 2-5 overall, 1-3 in the conference. Twinsburg and Cuyahoga Falls are both 0-7 and 0-4.
Woo!
Robert.
Wow.
Joshua.
You did a good job, Ed.
Yeah.
I'll say that.
Ed, you got to be out of breath right now.
Covering again
I feel
for
pretty
Sean.
good. I feel pretty good about it.
You're revved up.
I
You got
am.
enough energy. Did a great job with Sean's, conference there.
Hey, Sean does a good job. I mean, Sean kills it. And truth be told, he has one division that probably has the least amount of coverage. So he does a great job of getting stats and making sure that we have something to talk about when he's not here.
Well, we do have some comments from some listeners, and Matt Mickus, want to thank him for listening, says, get that kid some oxygen and a towel. and then Sean, he is listening, says Ed needs a chocolate milk.
Yeah, you know what? He only says that. He only says you need a chocolate milk when you've done some work.
That's right.
He has.
So he's giving you props there.
Yeah, I remember him talking about Brandon McCall needing some chocolate milk in some of his previous.
Hey, listen, it's a team
days.
effort. Just like a bunch of these teams are having successful seasons, it's a team effort. It's a team effort here at Sports on Tap.
That's right.
Absolutely.
And we want to say that's a great point. We appreciate our fans and listeners, chatting with us here on Mixler. And other people can do the same, too. If you want to get involved with the show, feel free to comment on there, and you might get on the show and, make us laugh like we just did.
Indeed.
But right now, what we're going to do is we're going to listen to our promo for our conference MVPs, which is sponsored by Z's Cream and Bean.
Sports on Tap now gives its conference MVPs, presented by Z's Cream and Bean, located at 2706 Boston Road in Hinckley, Ohio.
All right, and I want to thank Z's Cream and Bean for getting on board with us there and being a part of our conference MVPs. They've been really involved with our show, having us the first Thursday of every month out at Z's Cream and Bean to do our show, and we get a lot of positive feedback. So I want to thank them for being a part of our conference MVPs. Now, Josh, Jeffy, in the Greater Cleveland Conference, do you have an MVP ready?
Well, I had 3 quality candidates. Strongsville's Zach Kahn was one.
Zach Kahn.
My bad.
Come on.
Solon quarterback Johnny Mooney was also a candidate. But I went with Menor running back Alex Matthews. 28 rushing attempts, 252 yards, and 5 touchdowns in Menor's 42-20 victory over Medina. Alex Matthews was having a nice year. At the beginning of the year, kind of took a back seat, if you will, to sophomore quarterbacks Tadas Tatarunas, and then obviously my main man, Jason Blizzard, wide receiver. But he stepped up. This was an important game, I think, for Menor to continue to be on top of the GCC. So I'm giving my week. Is it week 7 or would this be
week 7?
Yeah, week 7.
Week
MVP.
7 MVP.
Week 8's coming up, baby.
Week 8 MVP in the GCC goes to Alex Matthews.
Nice. Congratulations.
Congratulations,
to
Mr. Matthews.
Alex. Yeah, great game. And that's Josh Jeffy's MVP for the Greater Cleveland Conference. Now we'll move to the Southwestern Conference. And, it's easy to give it to any one of Midview's players, whether it's Dimitri Redwood, Logan Bolin. But I'm going to actually go to North Olmsted's quarterback, Christian Ammons. He's been a leader on that team. They played a tough Amherst team. Amherst hasn't won a game yet this year, but they've been in very close games early on. Christian Ammons completed 16 of 22 passes for 245 yards, 3 touchdowns, and many of them going to Ryan Coleman. Like I said, he's a leader on that team, led them to a tough win because that game was close overall. My Southwestern Conference MVP goes to quarterback Christian Ammons of the North Olmsted Eagles with 245 yards passing and 3 touchdowns. Congratulations to him. A very impressive game and win for them. And like I said, there's so many players that can get it, but overall he just stood out to me.
Absolutely. Congratulations. I mean, heck of an effort. And you're right about Amherst. I mean, their record doesn't indicate how well they play. And,
and you don't want moral victories.
Correct.
Obviously, but I feel like they've played a very tough schedule and had some close games, just not able to pull it off. But now, let's go to the Suburban League and Ed Dick, who has the American and national MVPs.
Fresh off my swig of chocolate milk, thank you, Sean Duffy. The Week 7 MVP candidates for the Suburban League American Division. Number 1, Aurora's Chris Vanzo had 4 rushing touchdowns. Barberton quarterback Zane Reese, 3 passing touchdowns. Barberton running back Brandon McCall, 3 rushing touchdowns. Our MVP, however, we've come to know him quite a lot over the last couple of weeks. Running back from Copley, Weston Bridges, 22 carries, 208 yards, and 5 touchdowns in that big win over the Highland Hornets, helping keep Copley undefeated overall and in the American Division. Shifting over to the National Division, I have 3 pretty solid MVP candidates, if I don't say so myself. North Donia's Anthony Perrine. He was MVP last week, actually, and he did not disappoint. He had 169 yards against Cuyahoga Falls and scored 4 touchdowns. There are 2 running backs from Wadsworth that are also MVP candidates. All-Ohio running back Dan Weinerman had 164 yards on 28 carries, helping the Wadsworth Grizzlies take out Twinsburg. But my MVP goes to the second running back on their team, actually, Alex Jones, with 116 yards and 3 touchdowns. Alex Jones is my MVP for this week.
Nice.
He's following up a strong performance last week against North Royalton, where he had a 93-yard touchdown run that actually proved to be the only touchdown in the game.
Wow.
In between Wadsworth and North Royalton. So, Alex Jones has been playing very well. Dan Weinerman's been out for a little bit, and Jones really has taken the bull by the horns and has put himself into the conversation. And when you got both those running backs playing well, that's really helping out the Wadsworth Grizzlies offense, being able to rely not just on one running back but 2 running backs. So Alex Jones, Wadsworth running back, congratulations. You're the Suburban League National Division MVP for Week 7.
Nice, and congratulations to Alex. I think we're starting to see a lot of that more, the 2 running backs, especially in the NFL and college. The 2 running back to kind of take the brunt of the work a little bit.
Yeah, you saw it with Brunswick, too. You had 2 running backs from Brunswick that also eclipsed 200 or 100 yards in the same game.
Yeah, very impressive, and congratulations to all the student-athletes for being a conference MVPs presented by Z's Cream and Bean. Right now, we're going to step away, take a short break, and when we come back, we'll preview Week 8 coming up, give our spotlight games, and also go over the team rankings. Right now, we want to thank NeoSportsInsiders.com for hosting our podcast every week. They talk Cleveland sports, and you'll get to hear their promo coming up. So right now, we'll step away, take a short break. Thanks for listening. We're coming right back, so don't go anywhere. We're Sports on Tap.
For the best coverage of Cavs, Indians, and Browns, check out NEOSportsInsiders.com. NEOSportsInsiders.com brings you breaking news, opinions, and video from all things related to your favorite Cleveland sports teams. Like us on Facebook and follow at NEOSportsInsiders on Twitter for live updates from all the games. NEOSportsInsiders.com, bringing you the best in Northeast Ohio sports coverage.
Join Sports on Tap the first Thursday of every month at Z's Cream and Bean, 2706 Boston Road in Hinckley, Ohio, as Sports on Tap talks local Ohio high school sports, Cleveland sports, and national sports topics. It's all happening at Z's Cream and Bean the first Thursday of every month starting at 7:30 p.m. Join us. You're listening to Sports on Tap's Ohio High School football coverage live on Mixlr. Live streaming every Monday night at 7:30 p.m. Remember to check us out on Twitter at SOT Podcast and use the hashtag SOTHSF to post score, stats, and pictures from all your high school football games. Like us on Facebook and listen to all of our archive shows on iTunes, YouTube, and Podomatic. Again, our coverage starts every Monday night at 7:30 p.m. We're Sports on Tap. Sports on Tap now gives its